Kicking it off in style here, we've got Grant Callen. He is the CEO and founder of Empower Mississippi. Thanks for coming on, Grant.
Delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So let's start out by talking about School Choice Week. You were just telling me off the air, National School Choice Week was last week. Is that correct?
It's this week.
This week. Excuse
That's
me.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is National School Choice Week, which is a nationwide event with literally tens of thousands of events across the country where kids and teachers and parents are coming together to celebrate all the great kinds of options we have in education, public schools and charter schools and private schools and magnets and homeschool, not about one type or the other, but about a celebration of the diversity of options we have out there. And, you know, historically, Empower Mississippi and other organizations have gathered at the Capitol with 1,000 students and teachers and parents from across the state every January. And because of COVID and just feeling like probably not the best time to gather everybody together in close proximity, we decided instead of asking people to come to the Capitol, we would take the party on the road.
Gotcha.
And so we had the National School Choice Week bus tour around the state, and it was a fantastic event. There's video all over our social media channels where we traveled to the four corners of the state and celebrated. We went to schools that are doing amazing things, helping kids thrive, and celebrated those great options and interviewed kids and talked to teachers. It was just a great event to see the different types of options we already have available in Mississippi.
Let's start out by assuming that most folks aren't really familiar with what school choice means, and explain that, if you will. Just exactly what we mean when we say school choice. Sure.
Well, you know, school choice is just kind of a basic idea that says every kid is unique. No two come alike. I have five, and all five of them, even though they have the same genetic makeup, are incredibly different. And if kids are unique, then their educational setting ought to be as unique as they are. And so school choice is simply the message that we think parents know their kids best, and we ought to craft an education that makes sense for each kid individually, which means we ought to give parents the tools to shop around, to have options, to find the right setting for their kid. And what works for one child may not work for the next child, or what works for one season of a child's educational experience may not work for the next season. And, you know, I have friends who have one child in traditional public school, one child in a charter school, one child in a private school, and that's what works for their family. And so often, you know, under the Capitol Dome and in these political conversations, it is an us versus them, and it's a all-out trench war amongst the sides.
Yeah.
And I don't think that helps kids. The truth is, we want every kid in Mississippi to get a world-class education so they can pursue their dreams in life to become whatever they want to be. And the more catered our education system is to their needs, the better.
So translate that into specific policy.
Yeah. So there are a couple of different types of choice. It starts with public choice, giving parents the freedom between the public school system so that your choices shouldn't be narrowly defined by the value of a house you can afford to purchase.
Right.
So public choice, that's often called open enrollment. Charter schools are a type of choice because they're a public option that don't cost parents any money, but they are a choice. No student is assigned to a charter. Magnet schools are choice options, homeschool, private school. And then there are different vehicles that are usually public policy created to make different options accessible. So like a charter school is a public school that doesn't cost any tuition. A voucher is a public policy created vehicle to help somebody attend a private school that might otherwise not be able to afford it.
Yeah.
And then in Mississippi, we have what's called an education scholarship account. Currently, that's limited to students with special needs. But that's another way to help students who need a little something different be able to afford to attend a private school where they're going to get that special needs education they need if, in some cases, their public setting wasn't the right fit for them.
Right. So one question I have here on the C Spire text line, what can we do to let homeschool kids have the opportunity to play for public school sports teams? I think that's a matter that's been debated.
Yep. In fact, there's a bill moving through the legislative process this year. It's in a number of states. It's called the Tim Tebow Act. It has been introduced, and it's moving. So we support that at Empower Mississippi. We think it makes sense. Homeschool families pay taxes just like their neighbors who are enrolled in the public school system. It makes sense that homeschool kids would be able to compete in public school athletics. So if you support, to the listeners, if you support that, call your legislator. Tell them that you would like that bill to move and you'd like your lawmaker to support it. I think that's coming. I mean, we've seen a lot of states move to make that happen so that homeschoolers get more participation.
Yeah. So anyhow, appreciate that. All right, so tell us about the charter schools in Mississippi. How many do we have? What's the present enrollment? And what are we trying to do at Empower to increase the number of charter schools?
Yeah, so we were at Midtown Charter School last week, and Midtown is one of 7 charters that are up and running in Mississippi. There are 5 in Jackson. There are 2 more in the Mississippi Delta. One's in Greenwood, and one is in Clarksdale. Mm-hmm. And 8 years into the charter school movement in Mississippi, 7 for people who are at those 7 schools, it's been life-changing. Our concern is just how slow we have been to grow as a state. Mm-hmm. In that same, 8-year period where we have 7 schools, Arizona created 200 new charter schools. And it's not the state that creates them. It's entrepreneurial citizens. Sometimes it's parents. Sometimes it's educators. Sometimes it's business leaders who say, we need another option in my community. Anybody can decide they want to start a school, and you go through the charter authorizer board. So part of what we want to see is many, many more people considering starting a charter school in their community, and we want to help you do that. So at Empower, we have actually just launched a new project called Embark that's focused on finding people that want to start schools, guiding them through the process, and then investing in those schools so that we get more through the approval process and we get more charters up and running and more kids' lives changed.
Yeah. And this is a brand new program at Empower. Yeah. What do you think the attitude is in general within state government, lawmakers, with respect to expanding school choice overall?
I think it depends on, you kind of have to drill down a little bit deeper than that. The legislature has done a lot over the last 8 years. We passed charter schools. We passed a dyslexia voucher, has passed an ESA for kids with special needs. But we have a lot longer to go. And so I think there's much greater support for public choice options within the public system. But I think there's still work to be done to convince lawmakers that there is real demand amongst parents, that choice is not going to hurt and instead would help the public school system, and that it's in all of our best interest to make sure we have more options within the system. So I think it depends on the particular issue and the part of the state you're talking about. Yeah. I've seen just in the last few years the mindset. There's been a shift in mindset around charter schools. Many didn't understand what charters were when we passed the law in 2013. Some thought this was some way to help, kids that are already in private school. Others thought it was some terrible way to resegregate the schools. That couldn't be further from the truth. Yeah. These charters are a way to create options in some of the highest poverty communities in our state, and these schools are overwhelmingly serving minority students and kids that are high poverty, and it's changing their lives.
A lot of misconceptions, honestly, about charter schools. I've run into it as well and tried to filter through that and just share the truth. We got a break right here. You can hang around. Got a couple more questions here for you as well. We've got Grant Callen. He is the CEO and founder of Empower Mississippi. We're talking about school choice, and we'll get to some of the other things Empower is focusing on in the next segment. Middays, we'll be right back. We've got Grant Callen. He is the founder and CEO of Empower Mississippi. We've been talking about school choice. Quick check of the markets for you folks. The Dow down 1,051. I felt like it was headed toward the 1,000-point down mark. The NASDAQ, I think, down over 500 points today. So a lot of red on Wall Street. All right. So one of the questions that came up, Grant, from someone on the C Spire text line, by the way, 601-879-4395. If charter schools are public schools, then why does a kid have to apply and be approved? Public schools, of course, take anyone of school age.
Yeah. So they don't. Charter schools are open and public to every kid in that district. There is no admissions policy. There's no selection process. If there is room, if, let's just say, a charter school has 300 spots and 500 students want and apply, they draw names like a lottery. They draw names to see who get those 300 spots, and it's a blind lottery. So there is no selection process. What you may be thinking of is a magnet school, and magnet schools have been around a lot longer in Mississippi, and they are run by the district, and there is a selection process. So, like, we were at Obama Magnet School, Barack Obama Magnet School, as part of Jackson Public School last week. Incredibly warm welcome for National School Choice Week, but they are there is an admissions policy, an admissions process to get in, and you're not against that. It's just a distinction between a magnet school and a charter.
Yeah, Barack Obama School, public school there, not far from the Capitol complex.
That's right.
Supreme Court, just a couple of blocks away.
And they're doing something different. I mean, they're just an option for parents whose kids are really excelling. You have to meet certain academic benchmarks to get in, but these kids they're doing an international baccalaureate curriculum, and they're thriving. Yeah. And it's great to have that option within the Jackson Public School system.
Right. So the question is, why do charter schools limit the number of children that they accept and public schools don't? I think the difference is public schools, if I could answer this, and then you please respond. Public school and the public school system is designed from a capacity perspective to accommodate the district, the zip codes, if you will, that are covered by the school, whereas our charter school is a little different in the way it operates.
Right. There's no child assigned to a charter, so they have to have some kind of a capacity because their building size and the number of desks and number of teachers. But what you see is where there is great demand, and charter schools that have a wait list and parents knocking on their door to come in, they typically grow, and they'll create other buildings, or they'll expand to a second school. And so they look at the demand as a signal for how fast they should grow.
Yeah. And
many of them want to continue to grow to keep up with the demand.
Yeah. So the question that comes up, and we had it here today on the C Spire text line, and I think while you're here, it'd be good to explain this with respect to the mission of the organization, Empower Mississippi. This comes up a lot where folks express their concerns about the curriculum. There's a lot of people that would like to eliminate Common Core, for example. We hear that rather regularly, and a lot of people feel that we over-test children. And I think we believe that as well.
Yeah.
But and there's some other things with respect to just the operational aspect in public schools. Just explain kind of where Empower fits into those circumstances.
Our mission is about how do we create opportunities for everybody so that every Mississippian can rise.
Yeah.
And we want to remove barriers to opportunity in three areas: education, work, and justice. And I explain it like I have 5 kids, and I want for each one of them to find a great education so that they can find meaningful work and stay out of the justice system. Mm-hmm. So within that education piece, and each of our areas, we measure outcomes for the state where we say we want to see these metrics change. And in education, we want to see more kids graduate ready to be lifelong learners and prepared for life. And choice is one of the ways we see that can help move the needle, but it's not the only way. I mean, the vast majority of the kids in Mississippi are in traditional public school and will likely be that way for, my lifetime.
Yeah.
So we see choice as one way to help improve the system and help the kids who need something different. But we also want to see the system improve directly. And so there's some bills that we're working on this year that would do that. We think in the push for accountability over the last decade and trying to make sure, well-intended efforts to make sure we don't, students don't fall behind, there has been an overemphasis on testing. And many parents feel like their kids they don't have an opportunity to have instruction time. They're just preparing for tests all the time.
Yeah.
And teachers feel enormous frustration at how little instruction time and how much freedom they have in the classroom to teach because they spend so much time preparing kids for tests. So it's not about saying we're not going to test kids. It's about making sure we recognize testing is only one component, and really it's only one outcome we're trying to improve on. We want kids to be critical thinkers. We want them to be healthy. We want them to learn how to care for neighbor and be prepared for a career. And, a test can measure your progress on that in some areas, but it can't be the ultimate measure of whether an education system is successful.
Yeah.
So we're working on some things to help drive decisions down to the local level, give teachers more freedom in the classroom, and give parents more choice within the system so they can find the best match, best setting for their kids.
What can Mississippians do if they support this mission of expanding school choice and spinning up more charter schools, education scholarship accounts, ESAs? What do you suggest Mississippians do if they support those ideas?
I would say two things. If you're a parent and you want more choice, you want more options, you want more great educational settings in your community, reach out to us at empowerms.org. We want to hear your story. We want to write about your story. We want to talk about it. We want to engage you in the process. Ultimately, school choice is not going to happen in Mississippi or be expanded because some lobbyists are working on it. It's going to happen when parents rise up and say, I need more choices.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. The second thing is maybe you're a teacher and you're frustrated, or you're a principal and you want to start a school in Mississippi. We have a path for people to start charter schools or private schools. We want to tell you you don't have to do it alone. This new project, Embark, intends to come alongside you and help you from soup to nuts, from idea to doors open, so that we get more charters up and running, more kids' lives change. If you're in that category and you just want to have a conversation with somebody about what's involved, is my community eligible? Am I eligible? We would love to have that conversation and help you do it.
Yeah.
And you can get information on all that at our website, empowerms.org.
What are some of the pieces of legislation that Empower is tracking in the 2022 session?
Yeah, so there's a few education bills that I think are really interesting. One of them touches on this piece about testing. We're trying to create an accountability task force because we have created this program that's called Districts of Innovation, where public school districts can do really innovative things, because it doesn't completely intersect well with our accountability model, some of the schools that are doing the most innovative things are getting their hands slapped on the accountability model because they're not focused on standardized tests.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure the model communicates and captures the whole picture of what a school district is doing. And if the kids are thriving, the model ought to recognize that. So that's one of the bills, is an accountability task force. Another is a digital learning bill. Coming out of the pandemic, we've seen more and more parents looking for something different. Even if you're full-time enrolled in a traditional public school, kids are wanting more than what is offered in their district. And so we feel like if you're in a school in Rolling Fork and you would like access to advanced level courses that your district might not be able to provide somebody to teach Mandarin in Rolling Fork, or advanced calculus or something, you ought to have access to a digital course. And these courses are available. We just want to make sure they become free and accessible to students in every corner of the state. So that's another one of those, is giving parents more options.
It's almost gotten impossible for every single school, whatever the level is, to incorporate all the possible courses that might be necessary, and would be something that parents and their student children want to go through.
And we're used to having choices on our iPhone. You don't have to build everything into this.
Right.
You can make it accessible.
Yeah.
And I think our districts ought to be a place that can make more options available to parents, even at the local level.
Technology can support that. Appreciate it. Grant Callen, the CEO and founder of Empower Mississippi, has been our guest here on Middays. We appreciate it, Grant. Good talking to you.
Thank you. Enjoyed being with you.
Yep, you bet. We'll be back with more Middays. Stay with us.